Hello everybody. You can see I have my little friend BB with me here today. The reason I have him here is because I just gave a little boy one, and it reminded me that I haven't said anything about him for a while. So I thought I would show him to you again. You can bet that I wouldn't be this familiar with a real bee. I've been talking today about how my grandfather kept bees, his grandfather kept bees. I mean, lots and lots of bees, the kind that you sell the honey from, or you did back in the old days anyway. But Daddy only kept about 6 or 8 hives. I've told you before about Grandpap coming when Daddy was gone away to the war to take care of the swarms when the bees swarmed. And they were on they were in the chicken lot, actually, is where they were, because at that time Mother and Daddy had chickens, and one of my chores was to gather the eggs and from the hen house. I was scared to death every time I opened that gate to go into that chicken lot, because I was just sure the bees were going to come after me. And there was a couple of chickens, a couple of hens in that hen house that I really didn't care a whole lot about either, because sometimes they didn't want me to get the eggs out from under them. But anyway, and Mother's clothesline was just before you went into the chicken lot, down in the bottom of the yard, and she got stung. I don't remember getting stung that many times, but Mother did. I guess it was because the laundry was fluttering and so on. Maybe it attracted the bees. But anyway, we chose this because of my name. So I'm Ms. B, and we changed the S or the RS to a Z and made Mr. BB. And a lot of people have enjoyed him, especially the children. I want to tell you just a little bit about our Monday the 21st, we had a party here because the eclipse was going to come over that afternoon. So we started the party about 1 o'clock. And I wish all of you could have seen how many people were here. We probably won't have that many people here again until we do another eclipse party. And of course I won't live to see another one, not like this one anyway, because this was a long time coming. And I had done a little research and found out a lot of things about eclipses that I had not known before, which I do every time I start to do one of my little shows, that I'm going to talk about anything that I don't just remember from my childhood and so on. But the kids had cornhole down in the street. They blocked off the street, and the kids had cornhole, and they had other things for them to do over under the tent that the town set up. We had plenty of glasses for everybody to have some. And one gentleman that day, I believe, told me that he had paid $5.95 for a pair. And we were real sorry about that because we gave ours away. Anyway, it was a real fun day. It really was a real fun day. But you know, I guess my age caught up with me that night. I didn't sleep as well as I might have through the night, and I was sleepy all day the next day and took 2 or 3 naps. Now that's not like me, but I felt much better yesterday morning after I had slept a night through and had those naps earlier. And I didn't do a thing but sit here at the desk and answer the phone. People were still looking for the glasses, you know. And so I answered a lot of phone calls. Everybody was real nice, though. I only had one lady to be a little bit upset, and I later learned that she had possibly come from out of town looking for the glasses. She didn't tell me that, but I couldn't have given them to her anyway at 9 o'clock in the morning. I didn't even know where they were. But didn't have any myself. But anyway, everybody was just so appreciative of us giving the glasses away. And the little kids, like I said, they had such a good time. And their parents were watching them so carefully to make sure they didn't look up towards the sun without their glasses. So if you didn't get to come by, I'm sorry, because we had, David and Megan had gotten all kinds of food in. They had the little packaged drinks for the children, and they had sodas, and they had water, and they had donuts, and they had chips. They had all kinds of stuff. Pizza. So everybody did have a good time. I believe we'll have a good name of knowing how to put on a party after that. Anyway, when I was thinking about the eclipse and thinking I had two nieces who went to visit their brother in Columbia, South Carolina, because that was going to be a place where it was going to get pretty well dark. And I thought, that's a long way to go. And that got me to thinking about roads. And I thought, I'm going to talk a little bit about that today. I want to know from you all if there's anyone who, besides me, that is, who lived on a road that wasn't paved as they grew up. It would just be fun to know. Now, all of you know that I grew up on Bradshaw Mountain in McDowell County. And I cannot remember when the road across the mountain was not paved. But my mom certainly could. Because when she tried to go to high school, sometimes riding on the back of a timber truck, they had a bus sometimes, but it was broken down more than it would work, I think. It was a strange-looking bus, too. I've seen a picture of it. But anyway, the road wasn't paved across the mountain until about 1939, I think, which would have meant that I was 5 years old. But I cannot remember when the road wasn't paved. Now, we lived almost exactly a mile down Brushy Ridge off the main road. Our road, that road, wasn't paved. I don't even remember how long it's been. Not all that long at all. I was married and had my family and everything else before they paved that road. So we walked a mile on a dirt road and caught the bus to go to high school, and then rode 20 miles to Yeager to school. Now, they built a new school now down at Ousley, and so you don't have to ride that far, but then the children of the young people from War and up in there, Bartley and so on, are having to ride, and maybe from down at Panther, having to ride the bus farther than they had to ride it to get to Ousley, to the new school, which is Riverview. I remember walking out that road after the road scraper had been down the road. You know, that's what they used to do. They scraped the dirt roads, and that sort of filled in the ruts and made it easier to walk on and drive on. And I loved to walk on it after they had taken that blade over it, because it was just as smooth as it could be. And then you could get in where the ruts were, and that was like sand, only it was more like, I guess it was more like powdered sugar or something. It was real fine dirt, and you could get that if you were barefoot. That was a good place to be. Of course, on the shaved road was a good place to be too. But I just got to thinking about how things have changed since I've lived in Tazewell County. Of course, I've lived in Tazewell County longer than I lived in McDowell County. But I think there's only one secondary road in the county that isn't paved, just a small portion of it. And the road down the ridge where I lived is paved and has been for a long time, and the school bus runs down that road and so on. Kids don't have to walk out to the road to catch the bus anymore, which seems so strange to me, but I'm glad for them. But I got to thinking about 460, the road that runs by Bluefield now, and trying to remember how it was before they made the new road. When I was expecting my second child, who is Jim, and by the way, he's still doing well as far as we can tell. He's working sometimes every day, sometimes every other day. He put down 10 bags of mulch day before yesterday in and around the flower beds, and so on. He still hasn't put on very much weight, but it looks much better than he did, of course, because he did put on a little bit, and his color is good. So keep praying for him, if you will, that things will be okay, and that he won't have to go on dialysis, and that he will be able to lead a pretty normal life. But anyway, when I was expecting him, I decided to come to Richlands with my sister-in-law, who was also expecting a baby. Hers came a month and I think about 6 weeks before mine did. But anyway, the doctor that I had had for my first baby, for Vicky, had gone away from the hospital. And I really didn't know the physicians that were there then. So I decided I'd come with Margaret Ann to Richlands. The doctor that she had already had 2 babies by then. She was really fond of him, liked him very, very much. And so I thought, well, I'll go with her and try that out. Well, the road from Grundy to Richlands was not a good road. It had a lot of curves. You can still see where it went sometimes. It's farther up on the mountain in most places than the new road is, than the 460 that is used now. But it was a miserable ride. I went twice, and I decided that whatever I had to do, I was going to get a doctor at Grundy and not have to make that trip. I don't remember having that much problem with being sick, but it was just so uncomfortable because the road was real curvy, and then it seemed like it was a pretty good distance to get there. I was used to riding the roads from Roseanne to Grundy, didn't pay attention to those, but then from Grundy to Richlands, it seemed to me like they were worse than the ones that were farther, closer home. Anyway, I changed doctors and had Jim at Grundy Hospital, where his sister had been born. Michael's the only one who was born in Bluefield after we moved up here at the old Bluefield Sanitarium up on the hill across from the school. But I was trying to remember how the old 460 went, because it's changed a great deal. Um, and I don't remember how many houses it took or anything. In the last few years, you know, they have remade Grundy in Buchanan County, and the road doesn't, I mean, it's not even like the same place. Not just the road being made differently. They moved the river, they moved the riverbed. They did a little bit of everything down there to try to get some level land away from the floodwaters of the Levisa River. And it's nothing like it was when we lived there and when I was having those first two babies. But I still can't remember exactly how the old 460 went. I just remember that it was a very uncomfortable road. So I decided to see if I could find some pictures of it on the net. It's amazing what you can find on the net. You know that? It truly is. I found a lot of things that interested me. Now, you know, when you go when you go west on 460 from Bluefield, you're going to eventually come to Claypool Hill. And there, 460 and 19 separate. They've been running together all the way from Bluefield. I'm not going to talk about 19 and 460 beyond, to the east of Bluefield, just to the west of Bluefield. The reason I think that I got interested in that this morning was in today's paper. It says that there's some more spaces or more parts of the road on 460 that they're changing the speed limit on, and this will make, I believe this. I know it's the second, and it may be the third time that they have done this just in the last few months. And it had a pretty good sized article about 460 and how different it was in the way of speed limit and so on. And that's another reason that I got to thinking about the 460 road, I guess. Once my sister was bringing my mother up here to Bluefield, I think Mother had a doctor's appointment, and she got stopped by the state police, and she was just cruising along, not paying any attention. And when he stopped her, he said, "You passed me going beyond the speed limit. Did you not see me?" And she said, "No, sir. I guess I must not have." But I was enjoying the music, and I really didn't see you. And she was going about 10 miles, maybe more than that, over the speed limit. It's a wonder she didn't get a reckless driving citation, but she didn't. Anyway, that's what the policeman said to her. "Ma'am, did you not see me when you passed me? Did you not know I was a policeman?" Well, most of the time when you're in a line of traffic and you see a policeman, you'll see everybody in front of you putting their brakes on. Even if they're not speeding, and many times they are not. It's just like a reflex. If you see a policeman, you put your brakes on. But 460 from Claypool Hill to Bluefield. Now, well, let's. I wrote some notes down just so I wouldn't forget what I was supposed to be telling you. It was built in 1947 from Kentucky, from the state line of Kentucky, and it came up through Buchanan County at approximately the same way that 460 comes today. But I haven't been down there, I don't think, since they have four-lane 460 all the way. And I know it's a much more pleasant drive than it was. They had it four-lane into Grundy and then not through Grundy, and then you went back on four-lane somewhere. Maybe you were already into Kentucky when you got back on four-lane the last time I was there, but I think it's four-laned all the way now. Anyway, it comes into Tazewell County, 460 does, near Raven. And it used to go down through the town of Raven and right on through Red Ash, where you went right under a coal tipple. Of course, it doesn't do that anymore. But that's another thing that has changed so drastically about it. It's bypassed all the towns in Tazewell County. It doesn't go through any of them now, not even Cedar Bluff. Anyway, now that was in 1947 when they built the road. In 1970, they built a bypass. According to what I read today, they bypassed Raven, the very first one. And we used to go down through there and get homemade ice cream. So after they bypassed it, we had to get off the road and go down into the little town of Raven to get our ice cream. The banana was delicious. And then in 1973, it bypassed Richlands and Cedar Bluff. Now, I'm sure all of you have been through what my son-in-law called the Dreadful Heights there, where they made that cut on 460 through the mountain. And they made that nice little park up there where you could, if you're strong enough, you can walk all the way up so you could totally overlook Cedar Bluff and way up the road to where the blanket mill used to be and all that kind of thing. But I guess I waited too late. I know I couldn't ever get up that hillside now. But they have banisters on those steps and things for older people, I guess, or people who are not as strong as some of the others. And it's a pretty little park, and they would not have been able to have that until they made that cut through there. So that was a definite improvement. But my granddaughter is a geologist, and so we're always interested in the rocks and the cliffs that are left when they do something like that. And she'll look at one of them sometimes and she'll say, that's going to come in, that's going to fall in, or whatever, because she knows. Sure. She knows geology. I saw somebody on television talking about geometry. And then there's genealogy and all those things. And sometimes your tongue gets twisted around your eye teeth and you can't see what you're saying. First time I heard that, I thought that was real funny. Anyway, in sometime between 1962 and 1975, they bypassed Bluefield. In 75, they bypassed Tazewell. Now, wait a minute. That's not right. They bypassed Richlands in 73 and Cedar Bluff, and then they rerouted in Bluefield, Virginia. And they bypassed Bluefield, Virginia in 1979. That's when, it doesn't seem like it's been that long ago, but it has been. Goodness gracious. 21 and 17, that's almost 40 years that bypass has been done. And it doesn't seem possible that it's been that long. Then, in these years, they improved the road. I also had my boss to say to me on the phone, and he put something on Facebook too, about how difficult it was to drive on 81. And, you know, they've widened 81 in some places, and they did the same thing to 460, because 81 is an interstate highway. And the speed is greater, the speed limit is greater on it than it is on 460. Even though they have raised the speed limit in certain areas. But in these are the years in which they widened or what else did they do? They made bypasses. Okay. In 68, 69, 70, 72, 73, 75, 76, 79, and then in 2000, they multi-laned the western end of Bluefield. So they either widened the road in a certain area or they multi-laned it. And sometimes it was the bypass, well, a great deal of the time it was the bypasses that they widened because that's where the traffic was. You know, actually 460 is in as good a shape as the interstates are, as 81 and 64 and all the ones that we normally travel on. Did you know that 460 goes completely across this country, this state? Goes completely across Virginia, with the exception of a short segment that's in West Virginia, and it picks itself right back up in Virginia. I remember being on that section of 460 that's in West Virginia. But it goes completely across the United States to the Atlantic Ocean. When we went to Hilton Head, no, not Hilton Head, Outer Banks of North Carolina, Kitty Hawk, and all those places, we went on 460 deliberately because we hadn't been that way in a long time. Took us a while, seemed like, to get there. Of course, that's been a long time ago. I just let time get away from me. But anyway, we went through Farmville, I remember, and Petersburg, and all those places on 460. It's a good road, 4-lane all the way to the Atlantic Ocean. Then when you get there, you have to go south to get to the Outer Banks, to get to where we were, Nags Head, which is where we were going to stay. And we saw that movie about Roanoke Island, that play, not a movie, while we were there. That play called Roanoke Island, where the whole settlement disappeared. I always have loved outdoor theater, and my husband did too, so I took advantage of every opportunity we had to see an outdoor drama. And that was a good one, but the mosquitoes just about ate us up. We wore long pants and we had the spray, but the mosquitoes are really bad there, right on the coast like that. Anyway, I think it's interesting that this road that we ride on every day goes completely across the state of Virginia. And between Bluefield and Claypool Hill on 460, there are these intersections. There's a partial cloverleaf. In fact, there's more than one of the clover leaves. There's a right in, right out. There's a diamond intersection. And there's a trumpet intersection. Well, I knew what all of those were except the trumpet. And I had to look that up because I didn't know what it was. And it is actually shaped like a trumpet. See, I learned more than I can tell anybody else every time I start to look into something because I can't remember everything anymore. Oh, my mom could. When she was my age, she could remember not only her childhood, but her growing up years, her married life, the time she worked the census and the registered voters and all that kind of stuff. When she was my age, she hadn't lost any of her short-term memory or anything. And I've already lost some of mine, so I'm not going to be nearly as bright as she was if I lived to be as old as she did. So that article that I read, this is the second time in less than 2 years that the speed limit has been increased on portions of the road between Claypool Hill and Bluefield. There's a 7-mile stretch, a 5-mile stretch, both where the speed limit was raised to 60, and there's a 3.7-mile stretch that was already at 65. So, but you know, the roads are safe at that speed because they're in good shape. And, you know, it's just as easy to drive 60 or 65 on 460 as it is on 77 and 81. You're just as safe, I think. I really do. You know, when we moved to Bluefield, I don't know how many of you that are listening to me can remember, they were working on the intersection in front of the Sanders house. We moved to Bluefield, West Virginia in December of 56 and lived there until July of 58 when we bought the house that we still live in Double Gates in Bluefield, Virginia. But they were working on that intersection, I believe, when we first moved here. Now, we didn't come to Bluefield, Virginia a lot because we lived on Gilmer Street in Bluefield, West Virginia, and everything that we needed was in Bluefield, West Virginia, and we went to church at Westminster, which we changed to Graham after we moved to Bluefield, Virginia. But the Sanders house didn't sit down in a hole like it does now. They filled that in. I remember when they were doing that. They cut that mountain off that's there across from the Sanders house, and that evidently, from what I can ascertain from looking at maps and so on, the log house that the Sanderses lived in before they built the big brick was on that side of that hill where they cut that mountain off. But anyway, they cut the mountain off and they filled that in. And that made the Sanders house be down in a hole. Mr. Osborne, who used to work for the Chicago House Furnishing Company that was here, told us at a Historical Society meeting that they used to walk up to the Sanders house when they were youngsters. And now that's not the way it is because the road has changed. That's on the old Fincastle Turnpike, that road that goes in front of the Sanders house and turns into 720, and that turns into Valleydale in front of the high school. But used to be that road wasn't in front of the high school. When we first moved here, Fincastle Lane was the main road. When you turned off the road out near where the Comfort Inn is now, that was the road coming into Bluefield, Virginia. And that's all changed now. It sure took the traffic off of Fincastle Lane when they built the new road, which is Valleydale in front of the high school. So that's a big change, but that really doesn't have a whole lot to do with 460, although it does have an intersection with 460. But a lot of changes have occurred, and the roads are one of them. I wonder how many of you can remember when certain roads weren't paved. Like I said, I grew up where the road wasn't paved, and I would not have paid any attention to living on a road that wasn't paved. But the only roads you find now not paved is when you're going into a new development. And most of the time they have those paved right soon because they want to sell those houses in the new development. I just looked at my watch, and it's past time for me to stop talking. I told the people when they named the visitor center for me that I don't get around as well as I used to, but I can still talk. And I can still tell people that we live in the best place in the whole United States to live. And maybe in the world. We really do live in a good place. And we've progressed a lot. We haven't grown in population that much, but we've held our own. And we have such a nice town and such nice people who live here. If you can remember living on a dirt road and how it felt when it was no longer a dirt road, write to me, if you will, on Facebook and tell me your experience with your dirt road. My daughter used to say when we were going to Mama Brown's that we were going to Clean Road Mama. We were going into a coal camp, which was absolutely not clean, but the road was paved. So that was Clean Road Mama. And we went to Mother's, that was Dirt Road Mama. It wasn't Dirty Road, it was Dirt Road Mama. So actually it was cleaner than the road into the coal camp was, but she didn't see it that way because the pavement was already at Roseanne. Oh, I've had such a good time in my life. I've been so blessed. I'm still being blessed. And I appreciate it. I really love what I'm doing. I don't know how long I'll be doing it, but I really love doing it. And I love thinking that there are some of you who watch me most of the time. A lot of those are related to me, my nieces and nephews and cousins, but a lot of them are friends also. And I have made new friends doing this. Anyway, it's time for me to go, and I don't want to get in trouble for staying too long. Please take care of yourself. And we've talked about this today, too. No, we talked about this at Bible study last night. You have to love yourself before you're capable of loving anybody else. And what did the Lord say? Love your neighbor as yourself. That was the second commandment. So love yourself and love each other. And realize how lucky you are, how blessed you are to live in this country. Because you really are. I hope you'll stop in again next week and that everything goes well in your world. Until then, I honestly love you, every last one of you. Goodbye.